So for the next 8 to 10 minutes, we will be discussing the 2017 Houston Astros scandal. Time being limited, we'll focus on three areas, which will be the investigation, the findings, and the accusations. Number two, the penalties. And number three, the Astros players and how they responded to this. So to begin in 2019, this is where it all started. It all started where everybody was coming to find out what was going on and who was involved and what were the penalties for it and just what they could do about it, because it was really unfair to most people. So to begin, I want to just explain the reason why the Astros really got caught up in this, and to the extent that they did, to how big it turned out to be, is because, realistically in MLB, a lot of teams do cheat, but the way that the Astros did it was, really grand. They did it in a big way and they got caught, so they got penalized in a good way for it. Not too severe, but it was a good amount of penalties. So first, to begin with the accusations, it started off with the buzzer, and a buzzer is supposed to mean something that's, kind of like under someone's jersey to kind of like show signs of, pitch recognition to the player that's hitting at the plate. So it started off with, accusations from one of the second basemen, which is our leading star second baseman, which is Jose Altuve. So it started with Game 6 of the ALCS, and it started with after he hit a home run to get them to the World Series. So after that, once he was crossing home plate, he did not want to get his shirt ripped off, and supposedly he said that it was because of he was going to get in trouble with his wife and that he's too shy and all that kind of stuff. But really, people don't believe that, so they just think what they want to hear, and that's why he was accused of it. Number two, the camera from the center field, and then it goes to the catcher to review the signs that were being displayed, and then it goes back to the dugout to see what kind of pitch was being thrown at the time to give the Astros an advantage. And then number three, another accusation was the banging and the whistling that occurred. So before a pitch was being thrown, if there was a kind of like, anything that's not a fastball, anything that's like a curveball, anything like that, slider, there would be banging noises on trash cans, or there would be any kind of whistling to let the batter know what was going on and what kind of pitch was coming to them so they could have an advantage. So number three, in November 12th of 2019, a former pitcher of the Astros, Mike Fiers, which is now with the Oakland A's, he snitched on his team, and he started off with a story about how it happened and who involved and every kind of thing like that. But there was a lot of backlash with it because he didn't get involved until after he left the team, until after he got his ring. And that didn't seem too good because it just makes him look like a snitch. He had the power to say it back then. He had a voice, an opinion to try to stop it, but he didn't. He chose to just say it when he was just out of there and just, I don't agree with it, but that's just what he did. And then on November 18th, it came out with an actual video to show what the Astros were doing, the banging and the sounds that can really display how loud it was. So number four, to move on to the next chapter, the penalties. The penalty started with the manager and the general manager, which was the manager AJ Hinch and then the general manager Jeff Luhnow. They both got suspended for 1 year by MLB, but later the owner of the Astros, Jim Crane, he fired them. And he fired them because he said they weren't involved, but they didn't stop it either. So they didn't make anything, reduce or just stop or completely go away, so they were responsible. They also had to forfeit the first and second round picks for the next 2 years, so that would be the 2020 and the 2021 draft. They're also fined $5 million as a team, and that's because that was the maximum amount that they could be fined due to the rules and guidelines. Now this all occurred on January 13th of 2020, so it is pretty new. Now to begin, there were two other people involved, and it was Alex Cora, who was a bench coach at the time, and he was from the Boston Red Sox, but they fired him because he was with the Astros in 2017. And then Carlos Beltran, which was the only player to be involved that retired that year, in 2017, but then went to the Mets to go manage, and he was stripped of that position too because of what he was involved with in 2017. So a lot of people don't agree with why the players didn't get suspension or penalties or anything, and the MLB commissioner, which is Rob Manfred, he said he didn't give any discipline to any players because, number one, the players were promised immunity for their cooperation. Number two, the GM and the manager are held responsible and nobody else should be. And number three, the discipline is impractical, he said, because it's difficult to assign proper blame. Nobody really know who was involved and who started it or who tried to stop it, so it couldn't be anything done about it. What I really find kind of interesting about it is just a lot of people were getting involved. A lot of people were saying that they should have had penalties, not even directly within the sport. Just a lot of peers, people that don't play any sports, people from other sports were getting involved, and it was all a mess. So number 6, what they were saying, and number 3, the next part of the speech. It started with the news conference and spring training in 2020, and a lot of the players, all of the stars, all of the newcomers, and not newcomers, but the people that returned to the team, they didn't believe that it impacted the game, but regardless, they were still sorry for it. They were still sincere, and they felt bad, and they know they could have done something to stop it, but there's nothing they could do about it anymore. So they just apologized to the best of their ability, and they want to ask for forgiveness, and they keep moving on, and they just want to change the game and play it how it should be played. So Carlos Correa, which was one of the main people that spoke out, he's a shortstop for the Astros. He's been in the a part of the organization for quite a while, and he spoke out, and he really made some facts, and he gave out his personal opinion to everybody. So it started off with the buzzers and how they were ripping off Altuve's shirt, but he said that it didn't really matter because early on in the year, in the same year in 2017, it happened. The same thing happened where they ripped off his shirt and nothing happened, but nobody noticed that because they only really they only really saw what they wanted to see. They saw when it happened when they were accused of being cheated, but not earlier on in the year. He explains that there were a lot of people, or quite a few people, that didn't participate in the cheating, and they didn't participate because some of them were too humble or some of them just didn't like it, and they did voice their opinions about it at the time, but it just still wasn't stopped. Another fact is the bullpen. The Astros pitching staff, they came through during the World Series. They were really putting in their best efforts, and they worked hard, and they were really defending their team. They were giving their all, and it just helped us a lot because it made the Dodgers, the team that we were facing in 2017, it made them really struggle at the plate. So it gave us kind of a better advantage, I would say, and it was just kind of equalized. It kind of didn't really make sense for the accusations if we did our best and they still didn't stop us or anything. And he does also explain that there were some crucial hits and wins outside of home where the supposed cameras from center field are located. So with those hits, it comes with a lot of crucial hits that got people to score and got people on base and everything like that to get the Astros to win and to take the series in 2017 to get us to win. So with that, my own conclusion, my retrospective, I believe that it really didn't affect the game as much as people would think it did because of all the facts that came with it, and just because the Houston Astros as a whole, they are a big team. They work together, they have a big skill limit, and they were unstoppable. Even with that, I don't think it mattered. It didn't make a difference, but that's just me.